was trying to be
Very
polite.
intently.
Welcome to the Westfield City Council meeting of Monday, September 23rd. Thank you for all for attending this evening. May we all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Joining us this evening is Pastor John Lowe, the pastor at North Circle Church.
All right, let's open in prayer. Lord, we come to you tonight. We bow in your presence, grateful for the rain that we're receiving, that we have needed. We are grateful, God, for a city and a community that comes together to recognize you and to honor you at the beginning of these meetings. Thank you, Lord, for how you have blessed us in life, and we pray for order. We pray for presence. We pray for engagement as this meeting concludes this evening. So we pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. May we note the presence of a quorum?
Chad Huff. Victor McCarty.
Here.
Patrick Tam.
Here.
Kurt Waninger.
Here.
John Dart.
Here.
Joe Deppner.
Here.
Noah Herron.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Now, we are not making any changes to the agenda. However, just for the record, we do need to read something officially into the record. Ordinance 2429 passed on August 26 with a 6-0 vote pertaining to establishing a merit system for the Westfield Police Department. Unfortunately, as it happens pretty common, there was a scrivener's error, and we just wanted to make sure the record show that the ordinance will be recorded as ordinance 24-59, just for the record. I'm just trying to make sure people are clear on that. No issues whatsoever, simple scrivener's error. 2 and a 5 were flipped. That's all. We have no other agenda items to talk about there. We'll move to the approval of the minutes. I anticipate all of us have had a chance to review the meeting minutes for September 9th, 2024. In doing so, we need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes for September 9th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor McCarty, seconded by Councilor Waniger. Any discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Waninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Joe Deppner.
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Excuse me. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the claims for September 23rd, 2024. We do need a motion and a second as well for this item.
Make a motion to approve claims for September 23rd.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Herron, seconded by Councilor Dart. Any discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Waninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Joe Deppner.
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Do we have any residents that wish to address the council this evening? Thank you. Moving on to old business, we have ordinance 2450, which is additional appropriation park impact fee. This was originally presented to us on September 9th council meeting. This is up for adoption and consideration this evening. Ms. Tolan?
Yes, before you is the adoption of the additional appropriation through the park impact fee. And there was an error on my part. This is Simon Moon 1, Phase 2. You will be getting later on tonight, a bond for Phase 2 of Simon Moon. So I flipped that around during our meeting last 2 weeks ago. So there was just a error in my verbiage as I was reading just Phase 2 and not Simon Moon 1. So this money is to finish out Phase 1 of Simon Moon that is under construction right now that was not budgeted.
But the ordinance is written just fine, too.
Correct.
Though. Yeah.
Yep.
Any questions or discussion?
So it's still under budget?
Yes, they only budgeted 3.3 3.9 was only budgeted out of the 6.9. So this is just the remaining for this phase one. Yep.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion this evening? This is up for consideration. We need a motion and a second.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2450 for additional appropriation from the park impact fee.
Second.
We have a motion made by Counselor Waniger, seconded by Counselor McCarty. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Depner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2451 is our next item up. Is it the additional appropriation special census? We did have a presentation on this at our last council meeting. We also had a public hearing. Ms. Tolan?
Sorry. Oh, I think Chris and I are playing finger over here on this. Before you is the adoption of our appropriation for the special census. We have sent council members the additional questions that you guys had on the breakdown of distributions of those tax dollars. This is approximately $1.9 million, and I do have Ben Roger here if you guys have any other questions.
Any questions this evening? I know you sent some additional information, which was pretty robust. Why don't you talk a little bit about what we see as our projection over, frankly, in the first 2 years?
Yes. Ben, do you want to come up, or do you want me to do it? I can do it. Either way.
I guess the main thing is in terms of how the population increase is going to be with the special census. The numbers we preliminarily received showed about $20,000 potential growth in population as a result of that. And a lot of the revenues we receive are gasoline taxes. They're revenues we receive from the state, which are statewide distributions, which are allocated based on the city's proportional population within the state of Indiana. And the numbers show, based on the $20,000 population increase, we would recover our costs within the first 2 years. Meanwhile, we get the annual revenue stream for 6 total years, or until the next decennial census.
Ben, while we've had the pleasure of meeting, could you just state your name and
Yeah.
firm just for the record?
Yeah, Ben Rager, I work with CL Coonrod.
Great, thank you.
So basically, and by 2032, we would have a cumulative net return of almost $8 million. 7.9 is our projections, even with the payoff of the.
Of the cost.
Of the cost, yep.
Any other questions or discussion this evening?
That would be the best-case scenario?
That would be the best-case scenario. Mhm. Well, unless the numbers come in higher and people actually take the census.
Yeah, so what, what are the stats? Maybe you may not be able to answer, but what are the stats around the census? I mean, they're going to put a team of people together to go out and do this online as well as in person, but what's the take rate on a census today?
In terms of the population increase,
Well, no, I'm saying in terms of,
The response rate.
the response rate and how do we ensure that everybody, responds to this so that we can get the maximum benefit out of the.
John Rogers, Enterprise Development. I think what I've seen in the response rate is it varies depending on the type of population. We have the advantage of the school systems, yourselves and others. As soon as we have the date, which right now we're locked in for May 1st, we could start using those different types of media to get folks to go to the internet part of this survey. That'll drive the cost down and probably the number of folks that'll take that because they don't have to answer the door. Now, there'll be a certain, just like any other testing, audit testing, there'll be a certain level of testing that'll take place in those responses that are over the internet. But again, to answer your original question, John, it really does depend on the community.
Okay.
It's safe to say, though, that the marketing and the public awareness of this is a major
It's
effort.
huge,
Which
and
we
it's-
talked about at the last council
Yes,
meeting. yeah.
and I'll continue to drive that point home. It really will make a big difference if all of us are working together to to get folks to participate.
More people that participate, the bigger bang for the buck.
Absolutely,
That's the key message.
Yes.
We
absolutely.
need to get through.
Any other questions?
Any other discussion amongst council? Seeing none, may we call the roll? Let's do a motion first and a second. How about that? I think I'm just getting ready to lose my voice, Marla. I think the two of us share the same ailments tonight.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 24-51.
Thank you.
Second?
A motion made by Counselor Herron, seconded by Counselor Dart. Now, may we call the roll?
You betcha. John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Moving into the new business section of this evening, or Ms. Fairman's business for us all day. Janelle has quite a few things for us this evening. We'll start with Resolution 24-142, which is the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, approving amendments to the declaratory resolution and economic development plan for Grand Junction Economic Development Area. Director Fairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Janelle Fairman, Director of Economic Development. This is the first of 4 economic development areas that I'll be bringing to you this evening, and they are brought to you in sequence purposefully. The first here is the Grand Junction Economic Development Area, in which we are first and foremost creating some corrections to some old areas that were established prior to Grand Junction Plaza being built. I'm going to get to the maps here at the end of the document. Here we go. All right, so what we have here is areas in green, which will remain part of the Grand Junction Economic Development Area, and areas in red, which will be removed from the Grand Junction Economic Development Area within our downtown. You can see these parcels right in this block right here are all included in the Grand Junction Plaza and are not contributing to the TIF in that area, so we are recommending that they be removed. We are also recommending that a few parcels that are located here along the Midland Trace Trail and directly south, as well as these parcels surrounding the retention pond in the Grand Millennium area, are also being removed from the Grand Junction Economic Development Area. These 2 pieces will actually show up in the East Side Economic Development Area, East Side Economic Development Area, because they will be part of future development projects that are within East Side. Currently, those project limits are straddling 2 separate economic development areas, and when we go to replat for those projects, we would not be able to because they would be split into 2 separate economic development areas. Another area that we're modifying is a similar situation. This is up at 181st Street and Dartown Road. This parcel is part of a development called Leo Brown, which includes 3 parcels. This one immediately to the right, the parcel in red, and then this small parcel, rectangular parcel in here. These 3 parcels will be replatted into a single parcel to be developed as part of the Leo Brown project. Currently, one is in the Grand Junction TIF area, one is in the Wheeler Landing area, and one is not in any area at all. So you'll see this same parcel show up in the Wheeler Landing Economic Development Area later on this evening. We have an additional parcel here shown in green, which is immediately west of US 31 and immediately east of South Park Drive, as you can see. And this parcel was not annexed at the point that the Grand Junction EDA was established. So we are just cleaning this up and bringing this into that same area with the rest of those surrounding parcels. This is just immediately north of 161st Street. And that is the end of the changes in the Grand Junction area. Happy to answer any questions you have on this one.
Any questions this evening? Kurt, do you? This is a resolution this evening, so it's up for consideration, but we need a motion and a second to do so.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 24-142.
Second.
We have a motion made by Counselor McCarty, seconded by Counselor Waniger. Any other discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Joe Depner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next up is Resolution 24-143, which is the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, approving amendments to the declaratory resolution and economic development plan for the East Side Economic Development Area. Janelle?
Thank you very much. All right, now we have additions to the East Side EDA and TIF allocation area, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So the first areas that we have shown here in red are existing Westfield East Side EDA areas, and then what we have in green is the parcels that were just removed from the Grand Junction area, which are being added to the East Side area. Here on the left, this will be part of the Grand Millennium Project, and then over here, these will all be combined to be part of the Park and Poplar project, both within the East Side area. And here's an enlarged view. And enlarged views of just other areas that are already included. These are not new, these are just existing. This, unlike many of our other EDAs, is not all, it's not all contiguous. So we do have a bunch of random little sections that are all over the city that are part of East Side, which is why we have so many maps. Happy to answer any questions you have about these areas.
Any questions this evening on the East Side? Seeing none, it is a resolution again. We need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve Resolution 24-143, Economic Development Plan for East Side Economic Development Area.
Second.
We have a motion made by Counselor Dart, seconded by Counselor Waniger. Seeing no other discussion this evening, we may call the roll.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Depner.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 24-144, which is the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, approving amendments to the declaratory resolution economic development plan for the Wheeler Economic Development Area. Director Fairman.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the maps here. Okay, we have two small changes happening to the Wheeler Landing Economic Development Area. The first we talked about previously, where we have this large backwards C-shaped parcel, which has just been removed from the Grand Junction Economic Development Area and would be combined with this parcel to the east and this small parcel, rectangular parcel. These will all be part of the Leo Brown project and replatted as a single parcel. And then we have an additional parcel that is part of the I-Beach development, which also was not part of the city at the time the EDA was established, and we're just adding it to this EDA at the time. And I think that's our last, yep, that's the last of our maps here. Happy to
We
answer any
added the
questions.
I-Beach piece just the last council meeting, I believe, as well. Any discussion on this topic? Councilor Waniger?
How do I phrase this question correctly? For the general public, what's the
Yes.
benefit? So economic development areas are helped to create jobs and create benefits and projects associated with that. For the general public, moving parcels around, the importance of moving the parcels around in regards to financing and those types of objectives. So if you could just explain that for the general public a little bit, because I think I'm seeing some faces out there where people are going, why are they just moving these things around? Why are they, moving these blocks around? And why does it have to be in that one? What's the difference?
Yes, I'm happy to do that, and it will probably actually make more sense when I talk about the fourth one, because we'll have a new area that's specific to a project, which is probably more typical. Because these first three are kind of cleanup, they're not specific to bond issuances or any other specific financial impact, in the same way that the town-run.
I'll hold my
146.
question, and you can follow up at that time, but I just.
I'm happy to, well, I think it's important that I answer the question before you all vote, since
Okay.
you've asked the question. But generally, we add parcels to economic development areas and TIF allocation areas in order to generate tax increment, which then can be used to finance or support through incentives, infrastructure improvement projects, other public projects that are beneficial to the general public, which could include parks, it could include roads, utilities, other amenities that are all, again, generally available to the public. It could include parking structures and improvements of the sort. So we use these tools to help incentivize areas that we know that we're focusing on economic development specifically.
So balancing the funds to meet your goals and objectives.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other discussion this evening? Seeing none, we need a motion and a second.
Make a motion to approve resolution 24-144.
Second.
We have a motion made by Counselor Waniger, seconded by Counselor Herron. Seeing no other discussion, may we call the roll?
Victor McCarty?
Yes.
Patrick Tam?
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger?
Yes.
John Dart?
Yes.
Joe Deppner?
Yes.
Noah Herron?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Next item of business is Resolution 24-145, which is the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, approving amendments to the Declaratory Resolution Economic Development Plan for the 146th Street Economic Development Area. Director Fairman?
Thank you very much. Get these rotated. Okay. Now, this project, this change to this EDA and creation of a new TIF allocation area is very specific to a project which we'll be talking about again this evening. As shown in green, we have two parcels which are not currently part of the 146th Street Westfield EDA, and we are recommending that they be added to this EDA for specific purpose. The Town Run project, which we'll hear about as an introduction of a bond ordinance later on this evening, is a development brought to us by LoreCorp. It's going to include a Lifetime Fitness. It will have neighborhood retail. There'll be some commercial. And they're bringing a lot of elevated public amenities to this area that we are planning to invest in directly into that specific allocation area. So as you'll see later on in the presentation that I have, actually, let me just bring the presentation up here. We'll talk about it all together. So this is the project that they are bringing to that allocation area. It's called Town Run. And as you can see, they're going to be bringing very nice architecture, including a really nice facade on this Lifetime health facility. We also have very nice architecture facing Town Road. This will be, again, more neighborhood retail. We'll have restaurants with patios, some really nice hardscape and landscaping. This is a site plan that shows the trails that they'll have running down Town Road and connecting in along 146th Street. And they'll also be adding a very nice gazebo structure along the 146th Street bike trail, including some golf cart parking. They'll have pedestrian scale lighting, the acorn-style public lighting that we see in a lot of more walkable communities. And so we'll be allowing them to use, assuming that the bond is approved, they'll be allowed to use the funding from that bond, from the TIF, to support these public improvements within that allocation area. So again, this is just this area right here. It will be part of the overall 146th Street EDA, but it will have its own allocation area again, so it is reinvesting into its own development. Happy to answer any questions, and we'll go into the project in more details during the bond ordinance introduction.
Thank you. Question, what's the block that's not, there's a little Swiss cheese impact there?
This piece, I may need, Kevin, you might know, I know we talked about this. It's either already in the EDA and it doesn't show up because it's an agricultural piece, or it wasn't annexed into the city. I believe this is just a display issue because of the zoning on that parcel being agricultural, but hopefully within GIS.
I personally think
That
there's
we can
something
get.
being built there right now, but
Oh, on this parcel right here? No, I don't. I think that one's vacant.
okay, I may be a little bit more. Is it going to be over on that one? Any other discussion this evening? Thank you, Janelle, for the further explanation on this as well. So we have for consideration this evening, Resolution 24-145. We need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-145.
Second.
We have a motion made by Counselor Herron, seconded by Counselor McCarty. Seeing no other discussion this evening, may we call the roll?
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Next up this evening is Resolution 24-146, which is a South Park ERA confirmatory resolution. Ms. Jelinas. I'm so close.
So
I need to
close.
practice more.
One day you'll get
Jelinas.
it.
Yeah, I'll get it someday.
Claire Jelinas with the City of Westfield's Economic Development Team. The resolution in front of you is a request to expand the existing South Park Economic Revitalization Area. The goal is to include all parcels located within South Park, within the ERA that does exist today. So at the end of this, let's pull up the map. So the parcels outlined in blue are what's within the existing South Park ERA, and the request for additions are what's outlined in yellow for this part, this resolution in front of you. Same thing as what was discussed on September 9th, so I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you may have about this resolution.
Any questions this evening? Question really for our attorney. We did not conduct a public hearing on when we had this.
It's scheduled for today. We
For
have to have
today,
a public hearing on
correct.
it now, yes.
Okay. So we'll enter into a public hearing for those that want to talk about this item. It's at 7:28. I'll just remind those that want to address the council on this topic, you have 3 minutes to address the topic. If anyone would like to step forward for our public hearing. Always love the pause. So seeing no one, we will close our public hearing at 7:28 as well. This is a resolution this evening, so it is eligible for consideration. We need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve Resolution 24-146.
Second.
We have a motion made by Counselor McCarty, seconded by Counselor Wanninger. Seeing no other discussion, may we call the roll?
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. So our next item for business is Resolution 24-147, which is approving the deduction from assessed value of certain personal property equipment to be installed by Portal Diabetes. Ms. Jelinas, cannot do this.
Jelinas.
Jelinas. I cannot.
One day, I believe in you.
It's like
I know.
island. I could never pronounce island in 7th grade either, so yes.
That's okay. Again, Claire Jelinas with the City of Westfield's Economic Development Team. I'm also in attendance with Ted Randolph, the COO at Portal Diabetes. He's here with us today. The resolution before you outlines a recommendation for a 10-year, 100% personal property abatement for Portal Diabetes. And this provides you with a really good summary of the project scope. So Portal Diabetes is a medical technology company that developed a fully automatic implantable insulin pump to control glucose levels. The goal of their company is to reduce the management burden for individuals with type 1 diabetes. The company is looking to relocate from Southern California to an existing space within South Park. And the project location is within the South Park ERA expansion area that we just discussed. I do want to note that the company really loved being so close to the Monon Trail, and that's why they picked this location. So I just wanted to highlight again that asset that we have in our community, and it's being noticed and recognized by companies looking at us. So kind of going into the project details, they plan to create 35 full-time employees with an average wage of $65 an hour, which equates to a salary of $135,000 a year. Their investment is a little over $4 million in total, anticipated $775,000 in building improvements, and close to $3.3 million in personal property investment. And just to recap, I really wanted to highlight the benefits to Westfields that Portal Diabetes is going to bring to our community. They are adding into the assessed value of the existing building with that clean room and their build out for the property. And they are bringing high-paying jobs to the community, which will result in people relocating from California here, to dine here, to experience our community, and I think that's really incredible, to be noticed. So the resolution, let's see, pull that back up. So on pages 3 and 4, it outlines the recommended abatement schedule for your review. And then at the very end of the resolution, the statement of benefits that outlines the project scope is included with all the details. So I also want to highlight other supporting entities of this project. The IEDC has provided a commitment of up to $925,000 in incentive-based tax credits for this project. And then the RDC approved a $100,000 grant for this project to help with the build-out costs. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And Ted's also here if you have any company-specific questions.
Is there a timeline for the 35 new jobs?
Yes, within 4 years. So they plan to start relocating employees at the end of October. So then that time will start.
Gotcha. And is there a deduction at all in the tax payment if they don't reach that 35 jobs? Or is it just straight up, no matter what, like they get the 10-year tax payment at that rate?
So we do CF1s, so we do compliance year over year, and then we will analyze where they're meeting their goals and have those discussions each year and provide them with an opportunity, if they're not meeting that goal, to give us some context. Because the market does change, and we understand that, and so we keep that dialogue throughout the years.
Thank you.
Any other discussion this evening? This is a great opportunity for us to grow and really be focused on life sciences. It's also fantastic that we get some very high-end, frankly, new headquarters into the market, particularly stealing something from California never makes me weep. Only celebrate and realize they're really smart for leaving California and coming to Indiana. But we do really look forward to attracting more life sciences companies, as we all know. This is a great group. Several of us were able to spend a little social time with some of their leadership as well, which we were very thankful that they gave us the opportunity. This was a very competitive process, just to pick Central Indiana, and then also we had to compete with our neighbors as well. So it's a nice win for the city and frankly, for all. But we do have, this is open for consideration this evening. We need a motion and a second as well.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-147.
Second?
We have a motion made by Councilor Herron, second by Councilor Dart. Any further discussion this evening? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is ordinance 2454, which is the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, approving the issuance and sale of special taxing district bonds by the city for and on behalf of the Parks and Recreation District of the city to provide for the financing of certain improvements to park facilities. Mr. Otten.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, members of the council. I'm Dennis Otten with Bose McKinney and Evans. We've been engaged as bond counsel on this financing. Before you is an ordinance that approves the issuance of bonds of the city through its park district in an amount not to exceed $12 million. Those bonds will be payable from a property tax levy. They are being issued to finance two separate distinct projects, as you'll see in the second whereas clause there of the resolution. One's described as Simon Moon Phase 2, and the other is the Park Street Streetscape Project. The Park Board previously met on September 4th to adopt a declaratory resolution and a bond resolution for these projects, and those projects are a little bit more particularly described in those resolutions, and we can get those descriptions for you if you need them. And I know Danielle is here as well and can speak to those project descriptions if there are questions from the council. This is for introduction tonight by the council. The Park Board will be meeting again on, bear with me a second, I think it's October 2nd, to hold a public hearing as it has to do on these projects and consider a confirmatory resolution. We'll then be back before you at the next council meeting, if it pleases the council, for consideration of adoption of this ordinance. And from a plan of finance standpoint, at that point, assuming all the resolutions and ordinance are adopted, the bonds will be teed up for pricing, but we expect that to occur sometime in November. We're waiting on some more information concerning the city's tax rates. Once we have that information, we'll work with Bondry, and I see Oscar Gutierrez is here tonight, available to answer questions, the city's municipal advisor, and also Robert W. Baird, the underwriting team on this financing. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Otten. Any questions this evening? This is just an introduction, first reading only.
Yeah, can you share the breakdown of the expense or improvements to Simon Moon versus Park Street?
Danielle, do you have that information?
Yeah, Simon Moon 2, that would be $5.5 million on that end, and then the remaining would be the streetscape on Park Street.
Okay, so this, again, Phase 2 of Simon Moon won't
Correct.
start until next year?
Next year, correct.
Next year, and do you have any information as to the improvements or additions that are going to happen in Simon Moon?
That would be, yes, that would be some of the infrastructure in like the boardwalk around, the pond, and there was 3 other things on that list, but it's kind of more of just that finishing touches, which would be open then in November.
Okay, and then the streetscape
That would be-
on Park, what's the vision there?
Do you want to talk about that streetscape? So this is part of the vision of the plaza area on Park Street, and that would be part of the park project, and they would own that as well. But Janelle's been working with McConnell on that end.
Yeah, Janelle Fairman, Director of Economic Development. I'm working in collaboration with Chris McConnell, Director of Parks, and John Nail, Director of Public Works, for the design and construction of improvements to Park Street. And it could also include improvements to a plaza and potentially the Midland Trace Trail. We're still in the early concept phase of determining what our scope of work can be within the budget. But essentially, we're looking at improvements along Park Street that would create a more pedestrian-friendly environment, particularly as those restaurants have patios that are facing the street. We've had the Dora that has just been established downtown. We really want to create an atmosphere where people can feel like they can have more of a community feeling when they're on Park Street, that we could bring, it might be games that we're able to bring out into Park Street for people to participate with each other, socialize. We're looking at potentially using brick pavers, bringing enhanced lighting. There's a possibility of burying the power lines and relocating some additional utilities to create a more just more welcoming environment, frankly. We have a lot of businesses that have invested in restaurants along that location, and really the sidewalks and the road are not friendly and welcoming. We'd love to make it a great place for people to enjoy from the time they park to the time they dine. Happy to answer any questions you have about that scope.
Thank you.
Is there a way to, like, provide like a breakdown of what we're hoping to get with the budget that we would be approving, so we kind of know what we're approving? Because that Simon Moon, obviously, you could probably do an easy breakdown because you know what you're gonna get, but with this, you're just kind of saying, give us $7 million and we're gonna go off of that, but I'd rather kind of see what we're trying to get for that $7 million before we approve it.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough information yet to give a breakdown. We do know that we are very possibly going to have to buy right-of-way or buy easements in order to relocate the utilities, and we don't have estimates yet on the utilities. I currently have a proposal that I'm waiting on from Rundell Ernstberger to put together a design package. Hoping to bring that to Public Works next month so we can start working on that design and have preliminary estimates for the engineering side of it. But we really won't be able to determine what that breakdown is of the different scopes until we get through that preliminary design.
So would it make more sense to separate the two and to do them separately when you're ready to do the second one?
I can't answer that. I wasn't part of putting together the bond package holistically.
I can answer that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we can probably give you somewhat of a breakdown in a vision of what we intend, right, by the time, because we're gonna have it for the Board of Public Works meeting, at least a vision, right, of what we want to do down there. Now, will it be as detailed as you probably want? Probably not, but we can give you a general census of what we will be doing. But the way we strategize to move forward for this year, and Oscar can go into that.
Thank you. For the record, Oscar Gutierrez, municipal advisor to the city. The reason this is before you and the timing of it all is we're trying to hit our flat tax rate strategy. And the reason that Dennis alluded to the fact that we're waiting for information to come back, that information is specific to the levy appeal. So the way that we're approaching this is we are asking for a levy appeal. Once we know what that amount is, we then are going to back into the payments for these bonds, and we have to do that before the end of the year to be able to maintain our flat tax rate. I understand your concern, Counselor, about what that will pay for, but there is also a larger strategy that there will be additional improvements beyond that that are being contemplated via TIF dollars that are going to be accumulated through the economic development happening across. This is ultimately just to get the Park Street started. We assume that there will be further needs beyond that. So we know that 7 is not going to fully fund it, but we needed to at least issue $7 million to keep the tax rate flat if we get the appeal.
Is there a time, it seems like we're really far away from starting the process of the Park Street landscaping and whatnot. We don't have concepts or anything like that. So is there a possibility that we would do this next year sometime and go about it that way?
We wouldn't be able to hit the flat tax rate strategy that we've been trying to back into. So this is in order to issue those bonds this year for next year's use. I will say that it is within reason per bond council that to hold those funds in escrow, so they will be accumulating interest. So they'll be sitting in a money market account. So the $7 million will be earning in today's, if they were invested today, roughly 5%. We expect that the interest rate that we'll be paying on this will be lower than that. We can't do that for too long because of IRS rules, but it is within reason at this point that we'll be able to use the funds in a timely manner, and we shouldn't be paying arbitrage on those because of the timing.
And as Director Fairman mentioned, there's utility work and easement right-of-ways that we will probably have to acquire to get some of this done.
Yeah.
So that's why we were like, let's lump it all in together so that way we can get some of this activated pretty quickly.
This also qualifies as a park project because of its nature, and we were trying to utilize the park district capacity to bundle this into it, and then the remainder via tax increment. So we were just trying to maximize the allocation and the issuance. Rather than paying myself and no offense, Dennis, twice. We felt it was more efficient to bundle it together. But I'll get paid twice if you would like me to.
Any other questions this evening? I'm just enjoying two consultants complaining about each other's fees. That's a gem. So this was an introduction this evening, so no other consideration, but we look forward to this coming back to the full council. Thank you, Mr. Hod. Next up is ordinance 2455, which is the Woodwind East PUD. We have Mr. Crabtree here for a brief introduction this evening.
Good evening, council. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening for first reading is the proposed Woodwind East Planned Unit Development. The project, approximately 136 acres in size, would be located, again, approximately between 166th and 161st Streets to the north and south, west of Ditch Road. The project is proposed to have a maximum of 186 lots across 3 districts with varying minimum lot sizes. This item will have a public hearing at the October 7th Advisory Plan Commission meeting and will continue through the public process with a workshop meeting in November prior to coming back before the council at a later date. John Dabashewitz of Nelson Frankenberger is present this evening on behalf of Old Town Companies LLC, if there are any questions of the council.
I've got a couple of questions, John. How are you this evening?
Good, thank you.
So this proposal shows no more than 186 homes, I think you said, and 2 golf holes, correct?
3?
3 golf holes on the north side of 161st, or?
Correct. 3 on the subject real estate that you see here.
And does this also include redesign of a hole on the south side?
It does not. This zoning proposal would exclusively be for the development of this subdivision, which would include the 3 golf holes. Any redesign on the south side of 161st Street is a discussion that the city would have on its real estate.
Okay. So I think this is, an exciting project. My biggest concern is I believe the city has really, in my opinion, one opportunity with the purchase of the golf course recently. I think the city has one opportunity to really get this right and design this course and make this a golf course that the community wants to support and embrace. And I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that Old Town has developed and laid out the course, the 3 holes. And what I'm most concerned about is that I want to make sure that we're designing the holes first before we design a residential community. When you talk about somebody building a golf course, they lay out the golf holes, they lay out everything around it, and then they say, where can we put homes on it? I don't want to do this backwards and say, here's the 186 homes that we want to put in. Let's see if we can squeeze 3 golf holes in there. So do you know if a golf course designer has been selected, or what's the process going to be to make sure that, in my opinion, we do the golf course first and then the development around it?
Our point of contact at Old Town is Jeremy Lawler. He was not able to attend this meeting due to a conflict, but I can ask Jeremy to reach out to you individually and then report back to the full council prior to your next meeting on what that discussion is. I'm not aware of the status of those discussions. I know they have begun, but wouldn't want to report to you details on that I don't have the ability to.
I did call Jeremy today, and I didn't get a return call, so he must either maybe out of town or whatever. But I think that's critical. I really do. Again, we want to have a great experience for the residents and visitors of Westfield to utilize this course, and I think we've got something exciting to tell people that it's been redesigned, and we're making all these improvements. But I just want to make sure that, in my opinion, is the top priority before we move forward with a residential community around it.
Understood.
So, I haven't played woodwind in a long time. Are there currently 3 holes on the north side of 161st today, and you're just redesigning those 3 holes?
No. The two that you see, if you look at the aerial here on the map, and do I have a pointer? There we go. There's 2 holes that exist on the north side here today, and those are unchanged. The 3 additional, 1, 2, and then 3 back, are 3 additional holes. So there's 2 were added here on the redesign, I believe, and then there's 3 additional here that are added on this parcel.
So this is a totally separate neighborhood from the other houses on the golf course?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, just looking from above, I mean, the amenities, like, if the golf course isn't going to be done by you guys, so I don't necessarily consider that an amenity for being done by Old Town. And just seeing kind of the amenities that you guys threw up on your exhibit, I know what you guys can do. I've seen what you guys can do, and I just expect more from you guys on that. So hopefully, going through the process, you guys will come up with some better ideas for amenities for the community.
Any other discussion this evening?
What will be bordering the property? So if you look where these big estate lots are at, what's there today that runs east-west?
Give me, where were you talking about?
Move the cursor over to the right.
Along
Right,
this?
right there. That,
Everything is ag today, with the exception of this wooded area and a single-family dwelling that sits in this location right here, the Martin residence.
but on the south side, John, right there?
Along the south
Yeah,
edge.
yeah, there
it's-
you go. Yeah,
it's- It's agricultural fields today and tree preservation along the perimeter.
Is Old Town considering additional buffer in that area? Because you're saying today it's just a field, right?
Yeah, with the Berkman's house right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a planned buffer for that edge along the southern perimeter in that vicinity, right, between these 2 points.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for John this evening? I see none. Thank you very much. I do know that we have a meeting coming up this Thursday at 6 o'clock, I believe. Residents have been notified as well as appropriate, so I look forward to that as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda this evening is ordinance 24-56. This is for introduction only, which is the Trails 2 PUD. Mr. Crabtree.
Evening, Council. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening for first reading is the proposed Trails 2 planned unit development. The project, approximately 1 acre in size, would be located at 807 East State Road 32, directly east of the existing Crew Car Wash facility. The proposed PUD would allow for the expansion of Crew Car Wash with an interior cleaning business on the neighboring property. This item will also have its public hearing at the October 7th Advisory Plan Commission meeting, and will continue through the public process prior to coming to the council at a later date. John Dawashewitz of Nelson Frankberger is present for this as well this evening on behalf of Crew Car Wash, if there are any questions of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions this evening? This project's really straightforward. There's no curb cuts to 32. There's no curb cuts to the road adjacent to the south. And it's highly complementary to the ongoing business practices of Crew Car Wash and frankly, good employment too. So, John?
To that end, there are 2 existing driveway cuts on the south side of 32 that'll be closed. And then there's a path that'll get extended from the path in front of where I think there's Burger King over to the frontage where Starbucks is. So that sidewalk could get replaced. There's a sidewalk there that's real close to the travel lanes. Well, it'll be eliminated and the path will be pulled back further away from the travel lanes, create a little more safe situation for pedestrians.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Any conversation, Kurt?
So with the pointer up there, there's an existing trail on the east side.
It ends right here.
And you're going to extend it all the
And
way
it's going to get
over to the
extended
driveway.
across
Okay.
between these 2 lines here to our crosswalk. So this is the sidewalk that exists today, and that'll come out.
Good.
And it terminates right here. It doesn't even I don't even think it ties back into the trail. I think it may just terminate there, but we're going to pull that out and get pedestrians further away from the street.
Thank you.
So fixing the problem as well.
Yes, sir.
Counselor, do you have any? Seeing no other questions, thank you for this. This is just the first reading and introduction this evening. Look forward to seeing this come back pretty quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the ordinance 24-57, which is amending provisions in the Westfield, Washington Township Unified Development Ordinance with regards to temporary greenhouse expansion. And Director Todd is pinch hitting this evening.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. For the record, Kevin Todd with the Community Development Department. As mentioned in the introduction, this is a pretty simple amendment to the UDO. We have an article that allows for temporary greenhouses in addition to temporary holiday tree lot sales lots within our community. All of those require permit review, temporary use and event permit review by our department. This would not change any of that. This simply is probably correcting an error that occurred back when this ordinance first came to be. There's currently an allowance for the holiday tree lots to be up to 5,000 square feet. That same provision does not exist in the language for temporary greenhouse. And when I say temporary greenhouse, these are the things that we see show up generally in the spring and summertime. They sit out in front of, I don't know, our various stores, Walmart, and I don't know, it used to be Marsh and those sorts of places. So this allows those to be there. And really this amendment would bring the square footage requirement in line for the temporary greenhouse portion of this ordinance in alignment with the holiday tree sales portion, which again, we believe truly was an oversight back when this ordinance was drafted, way back when.
And just to be clear, you still have to get the approval of the business owner or the parking lot owner, if you will.
That's correct.
For that to even possibly occur as well.
That's right.
Any other questions for anyone? This is an ordinance this evening, so it's just a first reading. We'll consider that for potential consideration on the October 14th date per the APC, running through that as well. Moving on to ordinance 2458, which for first reading, which is the town-run economic development bond ordinance. Mr. Bingham from Barnes and Thornburg is here this evening to present this.
Mr. President, if you don't mind, I'm going to do a brief introduction of this
Great.
project, and Adam Hill is here from Lower Corp as well. And also, it sounds like Kevin has an answer on the 146th Street TIF area question.
Yeah, so if you'd like to hear that now, before we jump into this part. Quick research here on the fly. It looks like the parcel in question, that missing parcel of the 146th Street TIF, was part of the original district when it was created back in 2013. Subsequently, it was removed, and I couldn't find the exact time frame when it was removed, but it is an ag parcel, has an ag abatement on that parcel, so I suspect that's why it was taken out of the TIF, so that isn't counting against the bottom line of that district. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to do just a brief introduction here of some stats on this project, and then give Adam Hill a couple minutes to explain a little bit more about what he's bringing to this area. This is the town-run development, which we discussed previously at the 146th Street TIF area, or EDA with its new allocation area. And you can see the rendering there of the Lifetime Fitness as well as the neighborhood retail, which we discussed previously. I want to highlight some of the economic drivers for this project. Lower Corp is going to be bringing an estimated investment of $53 million to this parcel. The base AV for this project is only $62,700. We have an estimated future assessed value on this parcel for over $26 million, bringing our annual TIF generated, so this is the increment generated per year for this development, $543,000 worth of TIF generated each year, including $67.6 thousand per year going directly to the schools. So this really is a great investment, not just for the community, but for the educational community as well. And I really think that's important to highlight here. Outside of any residential development, this is bringing, again, $67,000 per year to the schools. They will have approximately 24,000 square feet of office and commercial retail space, 110,000 square foot private health resort, and then they'll be bringing public infrastructure, which is what we are proposing the bond will be paying for. This would include the gazebo that you see the rendering of, some additional trails, golf cart parking, enhanced pedestrian lighting, elevated landscaping, and gateway signage. Adam has brought to my attention, and I completely agree with him, that this is really a gateway from 146th Street into Westfield, and really is a great opportunity for us to create this really dynamic experience as people are entering into Westfield from 146th Street. Whether they're coming from the east or the west, this will be potentially their first introduction into our community. So really happy to be partnering with them. Adam?
Thank you very much. I'm not going to kind of reiterate much of what Janelle said, but when this project was approved, Phil Sundling and I, we went back and we kind of started analyzing this, and this truly is the gateway into Westfield. We thought this project warranted all of these things that we're doing. Just when people drive in from Zionsville, they drive up from Carmel, this is what they're going to see. And so we kind of took it upon ourselves to say, hold on, let's hit the pause button real quick and figure out how can we make this truly special and a true amenity for the community outside of just the businesses. So what can we do on the improvement side to make it the gateway that it deserves to be at 146th and Town Road? So a lot of the images that you see there. One of the images, just to address this, I think you saw a similar image in the IBJ this week. We provided an image to Noblesville on some look-feel images of things that we have done. So we're not replicating this over in Noblesville, it's just character and quality, just to let you know. But that's, we're able to answer any questions that you might have, but that's kind of the goal of it.
Any questions or discussion this evening? Victor?
Yeah, since I was involved with this heavily over the last several years, APC and so forth, just kind of a clarifying question in regards to the amenities like the gazebo and the trails and so forth. Since those were already required by the PUD, where does this come into effect? Is it just to help, beautify, make it more intense? And
it is way more intense than what the PD required. So, for example, the gazebo is one thing, as you remember, a similar rendering, but we're doing a lot more hardscape around the gazebo. We're beautifying that whole gazebo area, making it more accessible. There's going to be golf cart parking there. That was never ever contemplated. The trails are being widened a lot larger than what we were contemplating. We're beautifying that whole trail. We're putting benches on the trail. If you saw some of the zoomed in versions, you can see on the top left image there's some golf cart parking on the right. None of that stuff was ever contemplated. So that's when we kind of hit the pause button, went back and said, you know what, this deserves a lot more for the whole gateway entrance into it. So some of the stuff would be done, but not near to the level that we've done on this. So that's where those funds will go.
would it be similar, or would it be correct to compare it similarly to what we're doing in terms of beautification with State Road 32 and Park Street of, things could be as is, but it takes a little bit extra to, again, improve the overall quality of the area?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yes, this is the gateway into Westfield. Like, I can't stress that enough, at least in our opinion. And so yes, it's a very simple answer to your question, but we took a lot of responsibility in saying we kind of have a duty to make it much more special than what was just required.
Thank you. Yeah, again, with just my history with this project, just wanting to have the clarification with, what was required before and just how it is being elevated here.
Absolutely. Yeah,
thank you.
Very good question. I see the gazebo, and I kind of hesitate sometimes because I feel like we've done a few seating areas throughout Westfield, and every time I drive by them, I don't see a lot of people around them. Have you guys thought about like a water feature at all instead of a gazebo or anything like that? I know in Indiana it's tougher, obviously, with winter and whatnot, but I feel like something like that would visually be better in a gateway area than a gazebo, personally.
We haven't thought about that. I think what was kind of driving the gazebo aspect is, I think a lot of trails somewhat converge in this area. That there'll be some connectivity. The 146th Street will have a trail, the town road will have a trail, and they kind of converge here. So what we were thinking is it was more of an area if people want to go for a 25-mile bike ride or whatever, and they want to say, hey, let's meet at 146th in town. They kind of have a structure where they could meet. If it starts raining or people are out and about, they can go under the gazebo. So that was kind of the intent behind the design versus just a water feature. It's also in front of Lifetime Fitness. So we think in terms of people being active and whatnot, if they want to go meet at that location, they could. We thought it would get a little more use than just being like it kind of is a green space, but then it's more of an elevated green space with that gazebo structure.
I would second Counselor Heron's opinions. There's gazebos to me are something like you don't know what to do with an area, so let's put a gazebo there. I don't see them utilize that often. I'd like to see something more unique there. I'm not opposed to the gazebo. I get it, but maybe a little something more creative or unique. I probably wouldn't just say that to you, but to every developer. Gazebos seem to be outdated to me, but just throwing that out there.
To jump into that conversation just real quick, again, with having the prior history,
That's
it is the gazebo is being built where it was initially approved for on the site plan, correct?
Say that one more time. I didn't.
The gazebo being located where it was on the site plan, generally.
Is it in the same location?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yep, same general location.
Yeah.
The goal there, if you.
Yeah, I have it pulled up right now, so I'm trying to refresh my brain. But the initial kind of idea, vision for that, as being mentioned with all the trails connecting here, being sort of a pocket park trailhead. And I, too, agree that I would love to see more water features and so forth in our community. But just to, again, give a little bit of background of why specifically gazebo, seating area, and so forth. And you know, I can't say how many people, when I drive 146, I see biking, running, walking, et cetera, on the trails that are already there. So, yes, I agree that generally in neighborhoods, gazebos might not be fully utilized, but I think here it'll be a unique location, like you said, kind of a meeting location and a trailhead for people to make a brief stop and then go to the restaurants and Lifetime, et cetera.
Just to further add to that, that is a hard requirement in the PUD ordinance itself, so not putting a gazebo structure in would likely trigger a PUD amendment, so.
The other
for
thing
what
I
it's
think
worth.
that was, this is one of the differences, you know, previous council versus the current council, but the previous council had requested somewhat of a visual, if you recall, that a little bit of a visual buffer between the Lifetime building and 146th Street. And so the gazebo was brought up as part of that to provide somewhat, when you're driving on 146th Street, you don't see the Lifetime building right out of the gate. You see a softer structure and some landscaping around that before you see the building.
Initially, the commercial that is there in the upper left-hand corner, as well as the lower left corner, that was going to be on 146, but it got switched to being on the town road frontage, and there just wasn't very much land available there at that 146 frontage, so that's why, again, we went towards more of the pocket park.
I got one comment in regards to the gazebo, and then I got a question for Janelle, but more of a comment than anything regarding the gazebo. I just don't think it kind of matches the architectural of the other buildings, so I think the gazebo needs to look more like the architectural of the buildings around its surrounding area. I'd like to see that enhanced in that area. And then my question for Janelle is, with your experience, this investment of $3.1 million roughly, for this from your past experience and stuff? The gazebo, the trailhead, the golf cart parking, pedestrian lighting, all those things eventually need maintenance and need to be maintained. What's the assurance and the guarantees that those investments that the city is putting into these will be maintained by the developer long-term?
Oh, that's a really good question that I had not prepared for, so thank you.
Sorry.
I was waiting for all kinds of questions, but that was not it. So I would say generally, when you're looking at developments like this that are of a very high quality, this $3 million that is being requested for this bond is like the extra 10% that a project needs to be truly special. And for these developers to squander that and to not take the effort to maintain what has already been invested in is very short-sighted, because they are going to be bringing the highest quality tenants that we're going to have in this area. And if they don't maintain it, they're going to lose those tenants. They're going to lose the customers. And so really the assurance that we have is that they're investing in really quality architecture and quality amenities, and they're looking for quality community engagement here. So I think that's really the assurance. We don't necessarily have anything in our project agreements historically that I'm aware of that holds them to specific standards for maintenance, but it's something we could definitely consider.
I think moving forward with the city, if it's not this one, but other ones, I think in the future we need to look at that, just those assurances, because a good developer will come in and continue to maintain those assets and do those things as long as he's got good viable tenants and those types of things. But
Sure.
We've seen how, and we didn't do we did do investments in Village Park Plaza with some of the roads and enhancements we made in that area years past, and it's kind of gone downhill over the years, in my opinion, since Simon Property sold it. So I just like to see those things kind of continued in our investment that we put into them, what the assurances we would have associated with that. So
This is absolutely something that we can work into project agreements. Thank you for bringing this up.
So when you do a brick sidewalk, the city then takes that over once the developer is done with it?
It depends. So there would be some sidewalks or streets that would get dedicated to the city, which would then be the city's to maintain because they would be public. And
Yeah.
then there would be sidewalks or driveways or whatever that stay private, and then those would be the responsibility of the developer or landowner.
It looks like this one would be the city's responsibility to take care of, at least the ones on the image I see.
Councilor Herron, this is John Nail, Director of Public Works. We'd work with the developer to make sure that any kind of paver sidewalk would be built to our construction standards. We have a lot of experience at this point with paver pedestrian areas and how to best construct them to make sure that maintenance is minimum long-term. So we'd work with the developer on that front.
If I could add, the details on which components would be dedicated back to the city, we have not worked into a final version of a project agreement, so there are still opportunities for us to talk about which things become public and which stay private.
I will say that sorry to interrupt you, we manage all of our own projects. We're a local company that we've been around since 1965, and we manage all the stuff that we build, and so we take a lot of great pride in that, so we don't shy away from any of it. So if it needs included in the project agreement, we are more than happy to agree to that stuff, because it's stuff that we would do already.
And speaking of that, Adam, you probably don't realize this, but I worked with your grandfather, so well aware of the build and hold program that he successfully and frankly, due to a couple of your current projects, I'm pretty familiar with who you're building for and where you're building. You build some pretty nice projects for some pretty tough tenants that are pretty demanding and exacting as well. They may be a tenant, but you're building with them when you're going through that construction project. And frankly, I know that you work with them on the design of it as well. So I know they can be pretty tough, but I know you meet and exceed their needs, because frankly, they look forward to building with you again. So, which is an important thing, particularly when we're trying to attract the right type of developer and the right type of project. I could not agree with you more with this being truly a gateway and also a very attractive one to potential investors, particularly when you look at access to really great rooftops in Zionsville, as well as the west side of Carmel, not just Westfield. And it's that continuation of 146th Street, and really trying to attract the right type of architecture and the right type of project. Particularly looking forward to some great tenants as well that I know you can attract and frankly do good business with today.
Sorry, just to jump back in one last time, because as I'm looking at the PUD that was approved last November, because other fellow counselors mentioned the gazebo, that exact rendering is in the approved PUD. So with that, and there's also some visuals to have more of a equestrian-themed area. I know that was requested at the time, former counselors and APC members. So again, just as we're talking with residents and so forth, if we have questions about this, more so emphasizing the improvements to the trailhead, the trail itself, and just, again, overall feel for the area, correct? Because if someone hears, oh, we're having a backed bond for a gazebo, then, no, it might be a little weird how to explain that. So putting emphasis on the other items.
Are you asking?
Yes, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, okay. So some of this stuff is different than what is in the PD. The one that's not is the gazebo, but we have not gone to full-blown architectural design, landscaping design on everything that'll be improved. You see it on the trail, you see the golf cart parking, but some of those don't have all of the updates that we're doing. We can certainly have all of that done, but the goal with the trailhead that you just don't see there is adding some additional hardscape material where it's more usable, adding the golf cart parking to it, beefing up the landscaping, and then all along the trail, like the top two renderings, or the top rendering on the top left, that's a much wider trail. There will be benches along that trail. There'll be parking along that trail to just enhance the whole. I don't know if I'm sure you do know this. There's about 5,000 homes within a 1 mile radius of this site. And there are probably 3,000 homes to the north where people will get on that trail. That's what we want to enhance, that whole experience for the community. Not just usability, but also then when people drive through too. So if there's something, maybe before the next meeting we can have, or we could work with you directly on coming up with the bottom right of showing you all the additions that we're doing to that exhibit versus the one that was approved in the PD to show you some of those differences. But they're substantial.
Yeah, and that would just be my one request, just to, again, show that distinction of what was approved prior to what is the enhancements here.
Absolutely, okay. Sure.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Hill? Janelle?
I just want to remind everyone that we also have Brad Bingham here to answer any
well
questions
aware.
that you have specific
It's
to the
circled.
bond itself.
Brad?
Brad Bingham, Barnes and Thornburg. We're serving as bond counsel to the city on this project. Again, as referenced earlier by Janelle, this is kind of a companion piece to the approval of the declaratory resolution for the amendments to 146th Street EDA. This is an ordinance that would authorize the issuance of economic development revenue bonds that are secured solely by the tax increment revenue from this site that would be created. This is a very common tool as to how communities around the state finance these types of improvements. So you can certainly get projects and investments in your community, but to really enhance them and get what you want, it's oftentimes through this TIF mechanism. And we do it through these EDC bonds. We oftentimes call them developer purchase bonds or developer backed bonds. But the main reason we call it that is because there's just no recourse to the city. I mean, the sole source security is the tax increment revenue. In this case, it's a 50-50 split. So the bonds will be paid solely from the developer's 50% of any tax increment revenue generated. So just by contrast, earlier this evening you talked about a park bond. That actually is credit of the city. You're going to be levying a tax for those bonds. These, it's just non-recourse. So it just takes the risk of repayment and shifts it to the developer. But again, that's something they're willing to take on their own credit risk, essentially. This is, again, the first step in that process for the bond itself. I think it's October 14th. We have Economic Development Commission, so they have to hold a public hearing on the project, on the bonds, on the financing, and and then it would come back to the council, I think be later that evening is what we're contemplating.
Correct, October 14th.
And so there's, as you can kind of see, there's several steps in this. It's the bond itself, and then there's also the TIF area creation. But again, it's a very common procedure as to how we do economic development around the state. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Brent. Any questions? Seeing none, this is an introduction. As Mr. Bingham said earlier, this would be up for consideration potentially on October 14th for a council meeting. Moving into our agenda, do we have any city council comments this evening? Do we have an APC update?
Unless you'd like to go first, Kurt. I saw that you were.
I was going to give the finance committee
All right.
update, but go ahead.
I'll run through mine real quick. Last week at the APC workshop meeting, we had 3 items on our consent agenda. The Westwood Wedding Venue over on Spring Mill Road next to Urban Apples and Sundown Gardens. The new location for Solid Wellness Westfield, just right next door here on the empty lot. And then Gristmill Crossing out near Ditch Road and 32 for lots 1 and 2, providing more commercial opportunities in the community. And then our workshop items in themselves were the Westfield Yard PUD that's at the southwest corner of Gray and State Road 32. Those are the townhomes where the pipeline runs through. We seem to have addressed most of the concerns there. And then Finley Creek Estates PUD, located near the northeast corner of 193rd and Fremont Moore Road. Just deliberating if it's the right time and place for that particular project. And that was all. Thank you.
Okay. Today we held the Finance Committee meeting along with Councilor Tam and Dart. We held that meeting. We reviewed basically the status of the current budget process and probably not meeting the mayor's objectives of getting the budget approved in a timely manner that he would like. But at the same time, 7 new councilors doing their first budget along with the city. We're going through that process right now, just asking more questions, getting into the details a little bit more. So we'll be working with the city administration on that. Looking forward to council approving that budget later on in October. Also, we had an introduction and reviewed the first kind of presentation of internal controls ordinance that'll be brought forward. So fellow council members, you'll be getting an email from the clerk treasurer regarding this, and this will basically establish internal controls for public officials, are the employees of the city as well, in regards to the kind of the 17 key principles that are set forth by the Indiana State Board of Accounts. And then lastly, we go through the fund and appropriations reports and looked at those as well today. So that's all I have.
There we go. I'm having issues today. Obviously, I'm not used to playing video games. Any other comments from the council this evening? Do we have any messages from the mayor this evening? We don't let them know.
I won't.
So, yeah, let them wait. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.